Assalamu alaikum and welcome to our last addiction webinar for 2025. Alhamdulillah. At the moment, it's me who's running this. So welcome, Gania. Sister Aisha is here, but she is busy in the background. So Alhamdulillah. And anyone else who joins in, welcome as well. Today's topic is, let me just bring it up, is overcoming addictions to drama and toxic relationships. And sometimes I feel like, especially women in particular, but not just women, I think there's just a difference between men and women and how they handle situations. But, it's not just for women, obviously, because I think, it can be as equal in different ways for the both male and females. So just in any case, so I just want to acknowledge how common it is in both, obviously the male and female. Oh, sorry, yeah, that's right, male and female, and just how we can get sometimes, maybe not yourself, but you may find certain people find themselves getting caught in the chaos, in the cycle of chaoses as well. Or they may be drawn into, the chaos that may be surrounding them. And what I just wanted to say is that there's nothing wrong with anybody. It's just that we may be getting caught up in our thinking in the moment if we do find ourselves in that chaos. Because, it can be quite easily done and it can be a slippery slope. And sometimes it's also a fine line, like when to back away and when you just don't know and you find yourself just in it. So I guess, sometimes the drama, we can find a false sense of aliveness when things are happening, around you. You may just feel like a sense of aliveness. But really what we can, if we slow down, what we can really feel or what we can really start to see, maybe not in those moments, but is our disconnection from our innate well-being or our disconnection from our Fitrah, especially when we find ourselves getting pulled into stories. Alhamdulillah, it's like the brain gets used to these emotional spikes, like a hit of adrenaline or validation from what people are saying, what maybe people are saying to you, or you saying to them. And we can get caught, we just find ourselves getting caught in that. And, we don't know what we don't know. We can't see what we can't see until we step out of it. And then we go, oh, okay, yeah, I can see where maybe I could have done better. I could have not said anything. All of that. So, and sometimes as well, we may feel like the chaos feels familiar. Even when, you may even find that you find yourself safe, in inverted commas, in those moments, even if it hurts sometimes. Now, that can be, and I'm just talking about in when, there's heightened talk, in that sort of way. But because we may just find ourselves always in it, we don't know any other way. So we just may feel like if we don't see it, we don't know it. Like if we don't see it another way, we don't know it, if that makes sense. But of course, with our understanding is that I guess is just to slow down, because like I said, if we don't see that we may be getting caught in the problem, or maybe we find ourselves liking, the drama, because I've been in situations where, everything is all good, and then it might be a niggle here and a niggle there, like someone talking here and someone talking there, because they just can't help themselves. And even when you share with them, hang on a second, do you need to really say anything? Like, is it worth it? Sometimes it's better to keep quiet. I mean, yeah, sometimes it's better to keep quiet rather than say anything. And I hope I'm making sense, because I see this, well, I saw this even just recently, where you could feel the person trying to pick an argument, not a fight, an argument, and with different people. And it was almost like they are wanting to create that. Like, I could see that. And they weren't getting it from me, for example, but they found it in other ways. Just somebody who gave that listening ear, and that was it. It was, all over Red Rover, let's say. And what I think is that if we just if something is past and it's not bringing any good, is it worth always bringing it up? Especially if it was something, say, like six months ago or whatever. It doesn't always need to be brought up, especially if it's not happening anymore, like it was something in the past. It's us who are getting caught in our thinking, and we're feeling our thinking. It's not the other people. The other people have let whatever it is go. They're probably not even thinking of it anymore. But, just these little niggles, and then we can get caught up in that. So I hope I'm making sense. That's what I saw, just honestly really recently. And that was quite interesting to see, actually, how that all eventuated. And it was almost like once there was that argument, they backed away, and, it was, they were acting innocent. And I could see, I mean, she was probably innocent in the sense that she didn't know what she was doing, or maybe she did. I felt that she did, but it was almost like I backed away and let the people who she wanted to create the argument with, go hammer and tongs, just argue, which I don't think was helpful in any way. In fact, of course, arguments can sever relationships, and I guess at some stage they may not see the accountability, but later in life, there's always going to be that accountability, obviously, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that's why we got to really find out where our inner compass is pointing to. Is it towards something of peace, or is it something towards chaos? And if we're leaning towards chaos, then that's a signal to us to zip our lips and put our hands in our pockets. And the opposite side of that is, if you do find that there is chaos, or, just drama that's happening around, you may also find yourself falling into the role of the healer or the helper, wanting to rescue people. And so that also can give us a sense of identity, like, I'll help this person. And we find ourselves getting caught in it. It feels like fixing the situation gives us a purpose. And that can be sometimes unhealthy, especially if we let it carry on. And it's done innocently, I think, a lot of the time. But when we see that, again, like, for an example, I know that I was a people pleaser before, and it takes me a lot of, strength is a word that's coming to me, but I know that's not the right word. Like, if I find myself jumping in, like, oh, hang on a sec, do I need to fix it? Is it me who's responsible for fixing it? No, I don't need to fix it. I will help if I can, if I know it's going to make a difference, but there's a difference, and I recognize that difference now. alhamdulillah, from myself personally. Sometimes though the chaos makes, certain people feel the need, makes them feel needed, is what I wanted to say. And you may even recognize that in yourself or recognize that in other people. They just can't help themselves. And how we try and help them, well, they may not be ready to see that. And so they'll still fall into that cycle of, being the helper or people pleasing or whatever it is. But as I was saying, is that we aren't responsible for anybody else's psychological experience. We can share or plant the seed, let's say, for someone to see a different way or see their patterns. But if they haven't seen it yet, then we can't make them see that, if that makes sense. We got to remember that Allah is Al-Hadi. He's the guider. He's the guider of our hearts. He's the one who guides us in all sorts of ways. So just like he's guiding me and you, he's guiding everybody else as well. And I think that helps us to release any pressure and guilt of when we don't. Because I think sometimes as well, like when we come out of that role, let's say, of people pleasing, at times, I mean, I know for myself, I can feel guilty at times, like, oh, I probably should have done that. And like, hang on a second, no, I'm not responsible, And it's done with compassion, not out of ego. That's different. That's when we'll either fall into that trap or of like trying to please someone, or we'll go, oh no, I'm not going to do that, because there's a rigidity there, and it's just different. Alhamdulillah. So I hope I'm making sense. Alhamdulillah. So I guess moving forward is, how do we break the cycle of either being the one to invite certain issues, or the one who is the helper? How do we stop that? And I guess it's seeing the thought and the feeling connection. When like, it's almost like an alarm, and in actual fact, that's what I like to call it, or a love letter. I like to call it a love letter, because when we see ourselves, like we may feel some sort of irritability or something within us, and we may not notice that at the very start, because we're so used to that's our autopilot type thing, and so we may not see that. But when we start to slow down a little bit, or just find that pause, we'll find there may be a little bit of turbulence, let's say, like an ill feeling, a frustration, or a irritability. I think irritability I think irritability cuts it well, in the sense that we'll just feel a little bit off ease, or off. And that's when we can go, that's the moment where, that's the awareness, I guess, first and foremost. That's the awareness of how we are thinking. Maybe it's even subconsciously, we may not know what it is. When we slow down, though, we can, ask ourselves, what is it that I need to do right now? And so that's just an insight. It's not a strategy, it's just an insight. When we find that, when we see that, there's nothing really to do. when that thinking falls away, there's nothing, or even before that, there's nothing to do for that thinking to fall away. That thinking will fall away through insights. Alhamdulillah. And I guess the other thing is that, you know, reconnecting with that peace, when we do find ourselves in that irritable state, or, you know, that turbulence, that off state, is asking Allah to help us, because peace is our, you know, is in our fitrah. It's our default setting. It's our birthright. And so if we're not feeling that, you know, just taking a step back, a pause, a moment in time to ask ourselves, what do I need to do? You know, what am I craving for? You know, why am I craving? Not even having to ask, why am I craving, you know, the drama or anything like that, but just tuning into ourselves and asking Allah to help us, you know, to find that peace that is always there, to uncover it for us. And not connecting our peace to other people, but to the source, that being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think that's an important part as well, because, you know, it can be chaotic on the outside, but when we feel that peace on the inside, that's when we'll make a difference. Inshallah. And the other thing is that when we don't see it, you know, we're human, and we're gonna, you know, we're gonna stuff up at times. You know, I say this all the time. And not labeling ourselves as broken or anything less, or even the other people as that either. It's just that we are temporarily believing our unhelpful thoughts. And if we keep it to unhelpful and helpful, that helps us to navigate, you know, situations more with ease. You know, is it helpful or is it unhealthy? Is it helpful or is it unhelpful? Is it healthy or is it unhealthy? Is it healthy to, you know, create this situation? I'm just again reflecting on, excuse me, a situation where I could see that, which is what I was sharing at the start, where the person was going to different people, trying to, you know, get her data, let's say, to create it. And it was so obvious that it wasn't funny, you know, everyone could see that, and she probably still doesn't see that, and that's okay. You know, I'll still point her to her fitrah and get her to see, you know, I've just been slowly doing that, and Allah alam, you know, I don't know when she'll see that properly and if she'll see that, but her seeing her unhelpful thoughts or her unhealthy habits. Yeah. Sorry, this webinar is a little different because it's just me, so I hope it's making sense. Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Yes,
So,
you are safe.
alhamdulillah, good. And if you've got any questions, like once I've finished, and I'll you know, jump on, inshallah. So yeah, I guess, you know, some of the things that we can notice, like I said, if we are, or sorry, some of the things that we can perhaps notice within ourselves of the drama addiction is, are we over analyzing messages? Are we over analyzing what people are saying to us? Because, you know, we can all fall into that, trying to work out what it is, what they've done, you know, should have said this, could have said that. If, you know, all that story is, you know, a sign of drama. If they did this, if they didn't do that, you know, we all know that, how that works. Or could be checking phones compulsively, you know, to see what the update is, or whatnot. It could be feeling alive when they're stressed, only when they're stressed. And that one, you know, I would say that I would have felt like that, not in causing problems with other people, but this is how I used to be, when I was under a lot of, not stress, but pressure, deadlines, I would be like, okay, so what, like just on auto drive or autopilot, I think the word is probably, not auto drive. And so you feel a sense of alive, that sense of being more alive. Yeah, and that can give you that, hyperactivity type of feeling as well. That's how I used to be. SubhanAllah. Wow. Yeah, wow, SubhanAllah. That's a long time ago now. Sorry, I just realized that. I know it does creep up every now and again, but not to the extent that it used to be, SubhanAllah. And confusing the chaos with closeness, especially with other people, like when we always know, how can I say this in the right way? Like if there's drama happening at any stage and people are talking about it, it's going to bring closeness, but it's also going to bring that disconnect from their fitrah and from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it's, and I'm talking about in a negative way. I'm not talking about if they're trying to create solutions in a positive way. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in a different way. Yeah, that can bring that closeness, but it's not always a good sign either. So we can choose like to be boring and not involve ourselves in that. In fact, that's what I did not long ago in like the same situation where it was just like, whoa, what's happened here? And I just completely removed myself. I'm like, I'm not being a part of this. I can't, I'm not doing that. So I literally walked out the room. And I could hear it all going, and I actually helped other people to not get involved because it was really chaotic, subhanAllah. And I guess that gives us that clarity to what to do in the moment, and to know that Allah's guidance becomes more audible to us, not audible that we can hear it literally, but when we sink into that tawakkul, we'll know what to do. Our wisdom will guide us to what to do in the moment. SubhanAllah. So we get to choose, are we going to engage with it, or are we going to go a different way and be part of the solution in a good way? SubhanAllah. So yeah, I think that's kind of like where I was coming from. They were all my thoughts in regards to this. Yeah, I think, obviously having a healthy relationships in any sort of with anyone, obviously it has that mutual care and the love and the respect. When I say love, I mean that innate love, not love just for the sake of doing. The sake of doing, because there's quite a difference, I think, when it's innate, when it's pure love, when it's innate love. Even if somebody does wrong, or what you perceive as wrong, or you don't agree with it, let's just say it like that, we don't agree with it, but it doesn't cut family ties, for example. We can still agree to disagree and have that compassion and be calm. Oh, it might not feel calm in that moment, but we can come back to that space of calm. And then obviously we feel like that we're not walking on eggshells, like we can just express, and there might be some things that, again, we agree to disagree, but that's it, it's done. It's no hard feelings, let's say. And then there's that ease that comes with that. And I think, what I found, personally, on a personal level, is that, I find myself, I think I find myself more in that. I can, even if, just say, for example, husband and wife, they don't agree. They say what they've said, and then that's done. It's like moving right along, because it's a different moment in time. And I think that's a beautiful space to be in, because that's over now. Let's move on. It's alhamdulillah, it's beautiful. So I guess you know, open up if you've got any questions, I guess, yeah. Has anyone got any questions, first of all?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Now, yeah, you mentioned that sometimes, it's not good to hash out things,
Hmm.
especially when it's not going to lead to anything productive. But there's sometimes, um, there's the drama, and then the person insists, oh, let's hash it out, let's discuss, let's look at what happened, really with a good intention,
Mm,
but
mm,
even if it's hashed out,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
you can find some solutions so as to avoid it in future. But I've had a few experiences where at the end of the day, it, like you said, it doesn't really lead to anything good. You end up, the other party, both of you end up even feeling kind of like worse, or
mm,
so
mm,
how do you avoid the hashing out when the person's insisting, and the person honestly believes, oh, it's when we discuss it and understand where the misconnect or disconnect or misunderstanding happened, that
mm.
things can get better. How do you, avoid that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess each scenario or each experience is different. Um, and so I can't tell you exactly how. Like, you know, sometimes you might have like let's say a mediator, someone in the family who can listen to both sides and not take any sides, but just hear it out if that needs to be done, you know. I think the
Mm.
most important thing though is that when like you or me or whoever, like when we are in that situation, that we come from to it at a neutral space, and because that makes us see or hear differently, if that makes sense.
Mm.
See with a capital SEE, and
Yeah,
hear with capital HEAR, rather than just see and hear, if that makes
no
sense.
absolute sense, because most of the time when we're doing hashing out, you're coming from your own point of view and whatever feelings
Yeah.
that's top for you. But
Mm.
yeah, it does make sense that if you can come from a mutual space, not having, yes, it does, even just saying it, I can see how that would make a difference to how you see and hear.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know when I've been in a situation like that,
Mm.
um, like it started out good, then it went, was almost going into an argument. And then I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what? You speak and I'll just listen, because sometimes that's all the other person needs. And then
Mm.
when they'd finished, I said, have you finished? And they said, yes. I said, well, now it's my turn to talk. And you just need to listen like I've listened. And
Mm.
once that was done, it was like, oh, okay, is that it? So
Mm.
sometimes it says that the other person needs to be listened to,
Mm.
and that's
Mm.
it. So every time, every experience or every situation is going to be different.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I don't know if there are other ways.
No,
There
it
probably
makes
are.
perfect. And like I said, yeah, they probably are. But, that also will help a lot if you can just try and, be neutral and be present and listen.
And
It
that's, yeah,
do that, it actually shifts your perspective and you can see things from that other person's view, not
yeah.
to necessarily agree with it, but
Mm,
then have a better understanding of where they're coming from. It really helps to neutralize things.
exactly. And that's what I've found, because like I said, some people just want to be heard and they
Yes.
haven't been. And then you can almost see the shift in them once they've been heard,
Mm,
without, uh, when we are in our neutral space, it's like that meeting in the middle. They might, they might feel that they're over here, for example, but they'll come. And that's when we can find that compassion for one another, I think. But if we
mm,
have got our own thinking going on and we are just, countering whatever they're saying, that won't
mhm,
work. When we're
mhm,
quiet, that's when we can listen. And that's what I found as well. Like once, in this situation that I'm sharing, once they were listened to, and I said, well, you now taking, and they were trying to interrupt. I said, no, hang on a second. I didn't interrupt you. Now you need to listen to me and let's come to an agreement, or let's come to a solution. And it was just done like that. And since then, there's not been any issues. Alhamdulillah,
mm.
because we were both heard.
Alhamdulillah. And, even just saying this because the person I'm thinking of, you just saying it, in my mind, I can already see most of the time. I think, I don't know for sure, but thinking about the situations we've had where I've been, I can already see that most of the time it's just a case of she feeling the need to have been heard, and
Yeah,
and that, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Jazakallah khair, sis.
Well, yeah,
Jazakallah khair.
okay. Alhamdulillah. I've got in the chat here, sometimes I want to be listened to and heard, and that doesn't often happen. I also want to be heard and acknowledged, especially with loved ones. Although listening is good, although listening is good practice to really hear the other person. Yeah, and I think, I mean, I hear, yeah, of course, like it has to be, doesn't have to be, but and there's no shoulds either. But if it's neutral, like when not neutral, when it's mutual, when both are heard, um it's really powerful, I think. And sometimes we just need to like kind of set a loving limit, in the sense that, hang on a second, I've heard you, hear me out as well. But as long as we're coming from that neutral space, because um if it's coming from like a different space, I feel that that may not work. That may not work because I'm hearing something and I'm kind of like reading between the lines here. I also want to be heard, which is absolutely right, and acknowledged. I'm hearing something there that could, that's just what I'm, anyway, I won't delve into that, but that's what I'm hearing. I'm just, yeah. And if you wanted to come on the mic, feel free to. What I'm trying to say is that sometimes if we feel validated, it keeps us in that same cycle. That's, I think, what I was coming to. But that may not be what you're intending at all. Alhamdulillah. So has anyone else got anything that they wanted to share or add for today?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead,
well,
Tanya.
it's just, referring to the chat and the cycle, it was something that also resonated with me because I'm in a situation also sometimes that most of the time when I'm talking to a family member, and that's a constant,
Mm. Our family
most,
members are our hardest ones sometimes.
yeah,
Mm.
and most of the time when I'm talking, I get the sense of the fact that the person is not really listening, or not that they're not listening, they're not
Mm.
really hearing me. They're just listening solely to respond, if you
Yeah.
understand what I
Yes, I do. I
exact,
do.
they, and I can see that and I can sense that, she's just waiting for me to keep quiet and to respond, not
Mm.
really hearing me, not really hearing what I'm saying.
Mm.
And that for me leads to a lot of frustration,
Mm.
and a lot of difficult conversation because, I'm trying to communicate something, but you're not hearing it. And,
Mm.
but even with that, with what you're saying now, um, I think for me, I don't know. And even before now, what I've just started trying to do is try to understand that that's where that person is, and trying to communicate, because I do try. I get really frustrated. I really try to say, you're not understanding, you're not listening. And it's
Mm.
really not it's not making any difference. So I'm
Mm.
just trying to, you know, find that neutrality you talked about, be in a space of mind where I understand that that's where they are at, and my trying to really communicate won't really make a difference. And what it just ends up in is us having bigger misunderstanding, bigger clashes, which I find very frustrating and so, of
Mm.
course, upsetting. So
Mm.
I'm just trying, I take it back to Allah and I'm just trying to let it go, you know,
You
which
know, I
also
heard. Oh,
has
sorry,
some
go on.
challenges. Okay, sorry. Because in that, my letting it go, I won't lie, sometimes my defense is to ignore, which also isn't the best and doesn't always have the best result. So
Mm.
please, sis, say what you wanted to say.
I was just going to say or point to you that there was a lot of trying. Like I heard you say the word trying a lot.
Hmm.
And when we are trying, it's not going to always work like that. When we are wanting to come to a solution. I think when we have no expectation, like obviously turning to Allah. I'll share something with you which may or may not help. So it was a situation last year, and I may have shared this other times, I'm not sure. But I was doing the same. I was trying with a certain person, and I knew that they were in their head about me. They had already made their mind up about me and whatnot. And I thought, I don't know what to do, right? But I was trying in the most hardest of ways. And then I went, you know what? I can't actually do this. It's exhausting. It's
Hmm.
exhausting. So I
Hmm.
went, you know what? I'm just going to pour it out to Allah. Allah, I actually don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I have to do. I just poured it out to him and said, just help me, whichever way that you feel is right, or that you know is right, not feel, that you know is right. Just help me and let me let go of everything. I don't know the exact words, but something to that effect. And subhanallah, the very next day, once I like handed it over to Allah, it's almost like, I let go of my reins and hand them back to Allah because He's in the ultimate control of everything, right? Always was, always will be. I handed it all back to Him and I went, I just can't do it. The very next day, that person, I actually jumped out of my skin because I was not expecting it. And they come to me very in a different way. I'm like, oh, and asked me a very innocent question. I can't remember what it was. I went, and I jumped, and then, oh, is everything all right? I said, yeah, I actually just wasn't expecting you to do that. That was my response to them. And it's been better ever since then. So I think it's when we let go, like really
Mm,
let go from our mind and from our heart and hand it back to Allah. That's when we'll be able to, you know, just go more within the flow. And we'll fall back, you know, that because we're human, we can fall back into moments where we'll be trying again. And it's just okay, I get it. There's a love letter there. There's a sign. There's a, whatever we want to call it. But
SubhanAllah, that's very true and that's very profound, and Jazakallah khair for that. If you hadn't pointed it out, I really didn't realize or notice that, yeah, there was a lot of trying on my part. And like you said, honestly, there was a time I took it to Allah. Our relationship is better than what it was, but there was a time it came much easier for me, and
mhm,
then we were apart for a bit for some reasons. And then when we got back together again, when I, had to see the person, and all that kind of like peaceful, what can I say, place I'd been in
mm,
was all gone. And I was back to square one of getting frustrated, and then me trying, which Alhamdulillah, I didn't realize till you said it now, that there was a lot of trying on my part. Although, that being said, I did notice that one thing I didn't lose was that at the time things were better on my side, when I'd been able to I'd actually prayed about it and I'd been able to let go to a certain extent. I
mhm,
did find that I was able to be more loving to the person. I was
yeah,
able to be, yeah, it wasn't, I used to try before, but it was kind of like forced. But
force,
I
yeah,
saw it was coming more naturally to be more affectionate with the
alhamdulillah.
person. And inshallah, yeah, I'll take it back to Allah and do as you said, just surrender. I'm not, because of recent, it's just been, like I said, I'm trying, and sometimes
Mm,
I've resorted to just ignoring, which hasn't
mm,
really helped, because
no,
the person now feels, you're ignoring me, you're being
mm.
rude, and so Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair, sis.
Well, yeah, okay, no worries, alhamdulillah. Just reading the chat, how to practice being patient and keep calm when we have a lot of resentment for a family member and especially loved ones. I do my best to be calm, but something from the other person triggers me and I lose my calm. So I'm not sure how close this person is, in the sense, like whether you see them day to day or, just, in different occasions, or, every now and again. Um, I guess the one thing that I would share with you first and foremost is that patience is innate in you, and same as calmness. And the only thing that is stopping you from seeing that is your thought in the moment. Like, I'm not sure if you were here from when I said that, but if we're not in those moments, then, it's our thought in the moment that, we're seeing that turbulence. So, um, if we find ourselves not that, like not patient or not calm, and or being triggered, depending on the situation, but the best thing that we can do in that moment, when, especially when we're getting triggered, to, just put our hands in our pockets and zip our lips, because then we can't say anything bad and we can't do anything wrong. Or we can't say anything wrong and we can't do anything wrong. We can't hurt anyone with our hands or with our words. And just, walking away, for a moment if you need to, and till you come back to, to your Fitrah, turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asking him to help you, because he will. And know that without a doubt, having that that certainty that he will answer you, in the most beautiful way. I think that's the short answer. Yeah, I think that's that in a short answer. And when we don't see it, just know that you're human just like the rest of us. And, happens. We have, and we go, oh, when we, when we're backing out, oh, yeah, I slipped up. All right, what do I have to do next? All right, let it go and keep moving. Shift our hijab, put it on straight, let's say. You know how they say shift your crown or straighten your crown. I say straighten our hijab. And just know that you're human. But I think that's the first way, because just that awareness of like that you find that yourself getting triggered, that's a sign for you. So, as I shared, there's nothing really to do but just to be aware and either walk away, don't say nothing, zip your lip, whatever it is that you need to do. And know that your Fitrah will always come back. You'll always come back to, north, let's say, to your Fitrah. Does that make sense? And just know that alhamdulillah, just know as well, just know as well that we're always, like if we find ourselves getting triggered, we're feeling our thinking. We're feeling our thinking. Sorry, I'm like, does that make sense? That's it. If we're getting, we've got angry thoughts or frustrated thoughts, that's it. We're just feeling it. Just, count backwards from 20 in threes or whatever. I'm not saying to do that literally, but whatever it is that you feel inspired to do, to not do any harm. That's all. Alhamdulillah. Any other questions, or what's it and a takeaway from everyone? You can share it in the chat. If you like, you can come on the mic. And just remember as well that the change comes through insight. It doesn't come from the trying. It doesn't come from the doing more or anything like it. It just comes from insight. Alhamdulillah. And that can happen at any moment too. Can happen at any moment. We could be reading something, we could be hearing something, we could be in our garden, we could be doing the mundane things like washing our dishes or whatever. And an insight will come, and those previous thoughts that, could, be the one that trigger us are no longer triggering us anymore. Alhamdulillah, good takeaway, sis. Don't get sucked in by my thoughts. Absolutely. We've got so many thoughts, and there's some of those thoughts are very unhelpful. And if we just go, yeah, that's an unhelpful thought, it'll fall away. And that's also the unhelpful thoughts from us towards other people. If we always see them in their Fitrah, then that's where we can have that soul to soul relationship, or soul to soul connections, before whatever, like they're beyond what they're showing us. So beyond their symptoms that they're showing us, which may be, could be anything. Alhamdulillah. So good takeaway. I love that. Alhamdulillah. Absolutely, we do. Think good of the people in their essence, absolutely. And focus in if the fact that they are in their thoughts. Yeah, that's right. Because we're all living in the separate realities. So their reality is just going to be different. I mean, if we take an example right now in this room, I'm seeing different to everybody else. And likewise for every other person in here. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair for being here. Oh, sorry, there's another takeaway. My takeaway is stop trying and searching for answers. Trust insight will come when it's meant to come. Absolutely. Listen beyond what someone is saying so we hear what they are trying to get across. When people feel heard, we truly connect. I love that. Beautiful. Good takeaway. And they just don't know. And focus if the fact that they are in their thoughts and they just don't know. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Beautiful. Jazakallah khair to each and every one of you for being here. Anything that I've said is that is good is from Allah, and anything that I've said is bad is from me, and may Allah forgive me. One last takeaway is to always take it to Allah. Absolutely. Employ the power of pause. Yeah, so powerful, really. And be patient with yourself and don't expect an immediate hang on, be patient with yourself and don't expect an immediate shift or insight. Yeah, it will come. It will come. When we don't push it or, we just be, it'll come. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair, everyone. Take care. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.